Keeping it real with Kenny.
Hello everyone, thanks for letting me into your home this week to discuss a brand new topic, social care matters. My name is Kenny Adeyemo and I am one of the pastors at the Sanctuary of the Holy Spirit. Sanctuary of the Holy Spirit is a Bible-driven, Spirit-led Christian church dedicated to making sure all members enjoy this Christian spiritual life through various activities like this podcast we're having today and many other activities. So today we have a guest speaker in the house who specializes in social care from ages 0 to 18. She will be telling more about social care matters. So ladies and gentlemen, join me as we welcome to this podcast, Miss Emily. So, Miss Emily, you're welcome on this podcast today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So, Emily, tell our listeners what social care is all about.
Well, social care it's all about supporting, whether that's children or adults, with anything relating to safeguarding concerns.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
Okay. Because I'm gonna go further down now. I'm gonna dig deeper.
Yeah.
So, what does it entail? When we hear social care, what should we expect?
Okay. So, I mean, social care as a whole is a very broad
Topic.
But if we want to narrow it down, you've got children's social care and then you've got adult social care. So with adults, an example is maybe supporting an adult who maybe lacks mental capacity. So then they need support with someone around, things such as maybe putting things in place in their home to make sure that they're safe and able to, care for themselves. That's just an example, but that's some of the issues. And then with children, so that's 0 to 18, just supporting them.
And that's what you specialize in, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm a children's social worker. Okay. So it's about, again, safeguarding, making sure that a child is safe and well looked after at home or, wherever they're being looked after.
Okay. Thanks, Emily. Also, I want to say, I know there's a stigma around being a social worker because when I hear social worker, all I think of is they want to take my child away from me. And I'm sure viewers out there would have the same mentality, So, and when we hear if you're a social worker, we don't like you guys at all. A lot of people don't like you because of, maybe they've heard stories in the past that, you took people's children away from their family and you took them into foster homes and all that stuff. So can you expatiate on, can you clear mentality on what's going on there?
Please, honestly, I get it all the time. Even when I'm working with families, that's the first thing a lot of them say, like, are you going to take my child away? The answer is no. Yeah, that's probably like 1% of what we actually do. Okay. But no, that's not everything that we do. And it's unfortunate that's what the social media focuses on. But our aim is to help and support. So before we even get to the point of removing a child, taking that child away from their home, because ultimately we believe that children are best within their homes, it means that we've exhausted all types of support. We've tried to work with you and work with your family. We've tried to bring support services in place to try and help you. We've tried to signpost you to the relevant services. I mean, we've exhausted all of that and the child is still not safe.
That's when you can then take the child away.
Yeah, but it's a long process. It has to get confirmed by not just your manager, team manager, senior manager, and the court as well. So
that before you get to the stage of taking the child away,
and there needs to be so much evidence, piles and piles of evidence.
So they give you a long rope to pull, kind of, before they eventually takes the child away. Okay, so when we're now talking of around the stigma, still on the stigma side, what advice? I know you've had some cases whereby children have been taken away from their parents and all that stuff. So, what are the strategies when working with social care workers? Before I get into that, process of social work involvement. So, what does it involve?
Okay, so you've got the assessment stage, and that's the very beginning. So that's the field that I specialize in.
Okay.
And so we are like the front door, you could say. So in fact, before then, you've got MASH. So MASH team is the people that pick up the phone call, whether that's someone from the street has contacted social services or schools. We get a lot from schools.
Okay.
Whoever it could be, that's MASH. They will then triage and then decide, okay, does this warrant a social worker, or does it could another service support instead rather than a social worker? So they'll make that initial decision.
Okay.
If it's decided that actually, okay, we need to get a social worker to look if it's even meets social work requirement, then that's when it comes to the assessment team. So we will.
Sorry, before you get to the assessment team, just to make our viewers understand. So it all starts with getting a phone call to call the social worker. Yeah. So when they now get that call, that's when they determine what channel or what department handles the case.
Exactly.
Especially maybe if a teacher calls from school and you feel the child is not safe. And that's when it comes to you guys. So when you now get the case, when you take it over, what happens next?
So that's when we will now make contact with the family.
Okay.
And we'll let them know that this is the information we've received. We're going to need to do an assessment.
Okay.
Again, that assessment is to even see, does it warrant a social worker to remain involved? And so from there, we will arrange a suitable time to come out and see the child and the family, to speak with them about the information we've received, hear from them, ask them their views, and then also speak to the child or children. So we'll always make sure that we have to see and speak to the child. And from there, So from there, we'll then also speak to agencies. So that could be the school, GP, any other agencies that are involved in that family.
Okay. Sorry, Emily, sorry to cut you short. Before you get into the next stage, what are the things we need to look out for that you guys consider that's okay, this child needs to go into, you have a case with this child?
So maybe if there's been a report from a neighbor to say that I've heard my neighbor is arguing and shouting and there's children in the house. Sometimes we get a lot of calls about that. Okay. Parents arguing and shouting and fighting. A lot from schools reporting that maybe the child has said that my mum or dad has smacked me or hit me, or they've said that they're going to. So even if they've not necessarily hit that child, but they've said I'm going to. Okay. We come knocking on your door, unfortunately.
Really? Even if they've not chastised the child yet.
The fact that you've made
that you've made that statement that I'm going to smack you.
Yeah.
And if that child says that in school, social care workers are involved.
We can potentially.
You can?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But this same Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child. So how do we now do that? So does that mean instead of you saying that or hitting the child, the way Africans are brought in, they're quite quick with their hands, if that makes sense. So instead of doing that, there are other punishments you could give this child. Nowadays, social media is taking 100% of their time. You could, seize their phones. Exactly, you could get them to sit on the naughty chairs, on the naughty step. Exactly. There are things they love doing, Can you expatiate on that, please?
Definitely. So we would always encourage for parents or guardians to use alternative means. So rather than hitting or getting to the point that you're making a threat, because ultimately if you're making threats or you're hitting a child, it means you've lost the battle. It means that child has essentially gotten you to the point that you've acted out of character, and
so you can control yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what they look at, that's what they bank on.
So you need to take back that control as a parent or guardian and resort to other means. So removing luxuries, whether that child likes TV, whether that child wants to go out, maybe if it's older children and they want to go out with their friends, you know, telling that child that actually no, because of X, Y, and Z, you're not allowed to do this until, you know, you change your behaviours.
Okay.
What else is there? You can use reward systems. So I know whenever I work with parents and families and their child is younger, I encourage maybe for every good behaviour, £1, 50p.
Yeah, it goes a long way,
exactly.
isn't it? And it motivates them to do more.
Exactly, exactly. Or like maybe for every good behaviour they earn a point, and
when it gets to a certain number, they get cash.
I don't know. They get to go to the cinema. Anything that child likes, exactly. So at least it encourages that child to work towards something, and it avoids it avoids those sort of behaviours. Okay. I know some parents may ask, what happens if my child is still misbehaving even with the alternative strategies that I'm using? But one thing that I stand by is consistency. If that child knows that actually all it takes is for me to act up, and my mum resorts back to, or my dad resorts back to the same, you know, she gives up on whatever it is that we're trying, that child will keep doing that, knowing that all it takes is the one time. You need to really stand your ground. You need to really make sure that you're consistent, that actually, you know, whether you like it or not, whether you still misbehave, we're still gonna do this thing. We're still gonna do this thing, and eventually that child will get to understand, okay, my parent or guardian is not joking, like I need to do this.
Because you know what, kids are really smart.
They are,
and they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
You know, so talking about that, you know, making sure you're consistent with the punishment, and making sure, you know, they know that if they don't behave themselves, they will get punished.
Exactly.
And they know you're not going to back off. On that note, so do we then say, for couples, if dad says no, mom should say the same thing. So you be on the same plate, rather than dad saying no and mom saying yes.
Yeah.
So the child is smart. He knows it's playing both of you.
Yeah.
So mom and dad needs to be on the same plate.
Yeah.
To be able to bring a child up in a proper way.
Exactly.
What do you say to that?
Definitely, I would definitely echo that, because you know, if two parents are not on the same page, that child will just be
take
playing
advantage
against each other, and that child will know, actually, if mom says no, I can go to dad. If dad says no, I can go to mom. So you definitely need to be on the same page, and that child, once that child knows that both parents are on the same page, they won't be able to do that. And that is unfortunately a lot of things that we see when we work with families. A lot of parents saying that they feel undermined by the other parent because maybe that other parent is allowing something that they're not allowing, especially when they're separated. You find that a lot. So yeah, it's about maintaining the communication between both parents, working together, even if you're separated, still, you know, so that child doesn't play you guys against each other.
Talking about separated, a big shout out to all our single parents out there. I know you're doing really well. Well done. But at the same time as well, say for example, you've got a boy. You think some boys misbehave because they don't have a role model in the house? Or because I always advise, when you have a boy, have a father figure. It might be your uncle or your brother, a father figure that the boy, you know, can listen to, can emulate, you know. What do you think about that? Because obviously, if, for example, if you're a girl, you need a female figure in your life to put you through, you know, about issues of life, to guide you through. There's some things a girl would want to discuss but cannot be free with their dad. You know, they want a fellow woman that could understand where they're coming from. What would you say about that?
I think definitely it's better if, you know, for a boy he's got a male figure, or a female, she's got a female role model. But we do understand that it's not always visible, it's not always possible. So I think situations like that, I think being quite transparent and open with that child or young person, because they will then grow up to understand that, okay, although maybe I haven't got a mum or a dad in the picture, I know that I can still come to that parent. So I think just being able to have that communication and openness with your child is it does go a long way. And I think even thinking back to myself, even with the way I was brought up, my mum was very open with me. She would sit me down, you know, explain things to me. My mum was like my friend, I would say.
Best friend,
exactly. So now, like, there's nothing I can't tell my mum. Like, even though I still have my dad, but they're separated, I still knew that I can come to my mum for stuff. Likewise with my dad as well. So, and I think a big part of that is just how open they were. They were quite free.
And I believe that starts from a very young age.
Yeah.
Because if you leave it, you're not open to them, you leave them to do the things they love doing without even checking on them. Yeah. So they tend to get friends out there.
Exactly.
Social
Especially
media.
nowadays.
Exactly. Social media will be their best friend. And whether it's right or wrong, they wouldn't know.
Exactly.
So parents out there, please let us be our children's best friend. Talk to them. Enter their room, see what they're doing, you know, ask questions, get their phones, you know, just go through and see what they've been watching, because that really matters a lot, you know. And what would you say about that as well?
Yeah, and I think with that, it's also about your response. So even if you are seeing things or you're finding that actually your child is doing something that you wouldn't really condone, I think how you respond
matters.
It matters, because if you come and start shouting and you start, you know, going, like, you start pointing your fingers at them, then they're just gonna find other ways to conceal it. So if you actually say, look, my daughter, my son, this is not the right way. This is not the right way. Help them understand exactly why it isn't. Then I think that's a better approach, especially when they're older. You know, when they get older, teenagers.
Okay.
Social media.
Because I noticed that children nowadays, they like asking questions.
Yeah.
And parents out there, we need to take time to answer them. You know, explain to them the reason why. And because most of the parents are so busy out there doing their job, not having time, especially, you know, you call yourself a Christian or you've got a good job, and you hardly have time to spend with the children. You know, sacrifices.
Exactly.
It means a lot, you know, and that's why some parents. I know that you've all got bills to pay and everything, but you need to make that sacrifice. You catch them when they're young,
exactly,
because when they are now teenagers,
they'll remember.
It's gonna be hard.
Exactly. You don't want to.
It is gonna be. You don't want to lose that tender age, that young age.
Exactly.
Because then you can impart knowledge into them. You can impart discipline, fear of God into them, so that when they start growing and when they're in the teenage age, they could apply all this, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah? Okay. So thank you so much, Emily, for that.
You're welcome.
And we've talked about parents being a role model, Proverbs 13:24, which reads, "He that spareth the rod hated his son, but he that loveth him chastises him." So when we're saying chastise them, we don't mean physical beating. There are loads of ways you can chastise your children, especially when you're abroad in diaspora. You know the rules and you know the laws. So that's why we've got Emily here to explain more about not thinking when you hear social worker, you know, a social care worker, that they've come to take your children away from you. So there are things they look into, like what she's explained earlier on. Okay. Okay, so Emily, for anyone that would want to go into social care worker or would like to do what you're doing, what would you advise? How do they go about it?
Okay, so I feel like now there's so many different avenues to get into social work.
Okay.
So the main one is going to uni, studying social work. You can't do social work without the social work degree. Okay. So you would either need to go to uni and do your undergraduate, or if you've already got a degree, you can do your master's. I think master's is about 2 years, and then the undergrad is 2 years. But then you can also do apprenticeship programs now. So if you don't want to go through the route of university, you can do they have like step up programs, things like that, and that's where you will be learning on the job, and with that you will still get the degree.
Okay.
So yeah, I went through the route of university. So I did your standard secondary school, A levels, then I went to university.
Okay.
And then in order to work with children as a children's social worker, you have to complete your, they call it ASYE. So assess social work. What is it? Assess social work year in employment, and that's 1 year. And that's, you could say, like a graduate scheme for social workers, and you will be within a local authority within the children's sector. And once you complete that year, then you can feel free to try other avenues.
And have you been enjoying it so far?
It's been very testing, to say the least.
When you say testing, how do you mean?
It's been very testing. I think for me, it's been enjoyable in the aspect that I love working with people. I love working with children and young people. So I've always enjoyed that aspect. I like every day.
That means you've got really good patience.
By God's grace. This job has helped me. It's equipped me for that. So definitely, I would say you have to have patience. But yeah, so it's enjoyable in that aspect, that I enjoy working with people, and every day is different. No day is the same. But definitely challenging in the sense that there's a lot of writing. So I'm not even going to sugarcoat it to anybody. Like,
I thought it's about visiting homes, taking people's children.
You still need to make notes now.
So you still need to make notes about your findings,
so much admin,
what you've discovered.
Every single call, every single email, every single encounter, every single visit, every single conversation you have with every professional related to that child must be on those notes.
So you have to be like really good with typing and stuff, or writing.
You have to type everything. And bearing in mind, you don't have one family, you don't have two families, you can have up to like 25, 30 families.
And you have to write a full story
of each
of what you've encountered with them.
Yep. So maybe if I talk to like 5 professionals that day and see that child, all of that information has to be on the system.
And how soon do you have to give that report back to work?
Within like 24 to 48 hours.
Oh, wow. So
that's just maybe 1% of the social work. And you have to see that child, every month. And then
it's
also
kind of like following up the child.
So for as long as I'm involved with that family, I guess depending on the team you're in, but for me, I'll talk about the assessment team. So within the assessment team, you have to see that child with every 4 weeks, or every month. So if I'm involved with that child for more than 4 weeks, then I have to see that child again. And I have to keep up.
So, Emily, sorry about that. So, Emily, when you say you have to be visiting the child once in a month or something, so you're on the child's case already, yeah? So the child is still with the parent. So you've not taken the child yet.
No,
Okay. So viewers, they've not taken the child yet. Okay.
No.
So you've not taken the child yet. So what you're observing and you're recording every step of what's happening. In the process? Before what?
So I will be doing an assessment, and that's to determine whether ongoing social care involvement is even needed. Because in some cases, yes, maybe the child has said, my mom smacked me, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to escalate. It might mean that we have to talk to that parent and say, I understand that this child is acting out of character. Maybe it was a bad day, you were stressed. We understand it does happen with parents, but in future, let's look at what else we can resort to. So can that child go to, I don't know, another person's house when they're feeling X, Y, and Z, or when you're feeling stressed? Or can we resort to other strategies like we mentioned before? Can we try, we might work with that parent to look at what else can we do? And if that parent is happy to say, yes, actually, I'm going to do this instead, then there's no reason for us to stay involved. We don't want to be involved any longer than you want us to be involved.
Okay. There was a video going viral, that went viral then. This was years back now, about, was it the police or the social worker, the social care worker? They went into the boy's house to take him away from the family, and he refused to go with them. He said, I don't want to go with you. He was screaming, he was shouting. I think it was because there was a case about, being disciplined by the parents, and a social worker was involved, or I think the police as well, but the child refused to go with them. So if you guys visit a home and the child refuses to go with you, what happens? What do you guys do?
I've actually had that situation before.
Okay, come on
I
then.
had this situation, I think the boy was like 16 or 15, and he wasn't able to stay in the home that he was in. In those situations, we may resort to using police to support us to physically take that child out, and these are the worst case scenarios. So in my whole 5 years of being in as a social worker, that was my first time it had ever gotten to that point.
So when the police arrives, what happens? What if the child still doesn't want to go with them?
They will physically.
They'll force
you.
him.
Yeah, and before we get to that point, there has to be a court order. So if the court has granted, if the court has granted that, this child is unable to stay here, which sometimes we can get that within 24-hour turnaround, or it depends how
serious.
Yeah, because you have to think about it. If that child is in danger, let's say, even though that child wants to stay, but imagine that child is actually in danger and is at risk of maybe harm, we can't sit there and say that child doesn't want to go. We have to take action. So it has to be granted by court, and then sometimes we can get police to support us.
So what about in situations whereby parents are kind of like arguing, and it gets to a very, very hot argument, and whereby the child is scared and had to call you guys? What happens then? Even though the child was not disciplined, or but because of his environment, does that still involve you guys?
Yeah, so it would mean we would again have to assess to see if it might be a one-off, and we won't know until we've done that assessment
to see if that environment is safe for the child.
Exactly. So in those situations, if there's an argument, we'll speak to both parents and the child or children, hear from everybody, and with that we'll also speak to school, GP, whoever else is involved with the family, and then we will then make a decision as to, does this need social worker to work with the family ongoing? And when we say we're working with the family, that could mean, continuing to work with both parents to explore if you're upset at each other, what else can you do? Can somebody walk away? Can you, rather than talking face to face, can you text each other? Maybe some people communicate better on texting. Could you maybe take that child somewhere else, and then you have that argument? So it's just about forming strategies to make sure that the environment, as you said, is safe for that child.
So you talked about working along with the family. So are there situations whereby you work along? It's not all about involving the police, it's all taking the child away from the family. So does that mean that you can work with the family to make it to make their life a better place for the child, or to make that home a better place? It's all about the child now. So does that mean you can work with the parent to make that environment conducive enough for the child to live it? So it's not about taking the child away now. So you can still work with them step by step to make it conducive for him, and then you eventually dismiss the case. Is that how it is?
That's the plan. That's our aim. Ultimately, we don't want to be involved. We want to see the back of you guys, and we never want to see you guys again.
Really?
The only way we can leave is if you are cooperative, so you are transparent and you are able to work alongside with us. So as much as we might recommend, we think it would be good if you do this, it's not about us dictating to the family what they should or shouldn't do. The family can also say, actually, no, this is not going to work for me. Let's try this. This will work better for me. So that's essentially what we want. We want to work with you to make sure that, because we all want the same thing, for that child to be safe and well. So the only way things escalate is maybe if parents are uncooperative or the problem persists. So let's say even with all the strategies we've tried to put, you said, yes, me and my husband or my partner are not going to argue again. Next week, you've argued again. What do we do? You can't be angry that we're back again. You can't be angry that we're back.
So does that mean the child would have to be the one to call you again, or you would be assessing?
Sometimes neighbours, they'll call and say that these people are arguing. Sometimes,
so it's not necessarily the child. Neighbours could call, anyone
It's not really often the child. It's normally neighbours, schools, or people within the community.
Okay.
Yeah, or maybe schools notice that child is down, because you have to think these things, they affect the child, and you're not really thinking about the child if you're continuing these behaviors. You need to put that child first, and
So say for example, school notice that your child sleeps in school, and or they don't eat, or they're always alone on the playground. They're sad.
They might ask
so these
questions.
are the things they might ask questions, and that could lead down to you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we do try and encourage schools as well to speak to the family, because yes, you can call social worker, but actually, have you spoken? What we would be asking is, have you spoken to that family first? But there are situations, for example, if a child says that I've been smacked, there are situations that the school cannot speak to that child immediately. The school will have to call social care first, and then become involved. So yeah, there are situations there where schools are not expected to speak to the family first. So things like if the child hasn't eaten, or the child has clothes that are quite small,
they have to speak to the family first.
Speak to the family first, because it might be that maybe the family's struggling, so maybe the school can help where they can, things like that.
Okay, so Emily, another one. What are the biggest challenges you've ever had being a social care worker?
Okay, I think I've got a few actually. I think one of my biggest challenges is resistant families. So families that maybe they don't want anything to do with social work, they don't like us, they don't want to hear it.
I'm sure, but even by the time you get to the door, nobody wants to let you in. Like social worker, my God, and they start panicking.
Exactly. I think that is a challenge. That is one of them. And then I also think sometimes my values, my own personal values and my own personal thoughts, having to put that aside and still maybe work with the family, because you can imagine I hear so many things about sexual abuse, about killing, and it's like I have to still work with that person and put my own thoughts and views aside.
So do you kind of like get scared when you hear all those things? Or
it's
you just...
sad to say, not anymore. I hear it so
Really?
much. Yeah, I hear it so much. In fact, let me say, there is a few. Sometimes the information that you read about a person can make you feel like, okay, you need to be prepared when I get to this person's house. But they're not often. Most times, if it's all about your approach. I'm quite calm, and I always try and make sure
just
that
pray before you enter each house.
Exactly, and that too daily actually. So yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. So Emily, I've got another question for you. How do you think children that have been taken away from their parents, now in foster care homes, how do you think it affects them physically, mentally? How do you think they feel?
Yeah, that's a really good question actually. I think we always discourage children going through the system, especially going into care. That's like the last resort, because ultimately sometimes it's not the best situation for a child. I think especially because some children they go into foster care, so they're placed into another family home, and sometimes you've got children that have been in a family home for maybe years, 5 years, 10 years, and they're part of that family, and then unfortunately for one thing or another that breaks down, and that child is then moved into a care home. Yeah, into another home or another family. And psychologically, it can be very damaging, because that child will then feel abandoned, or that child will feel like, there's no real home or sense of identity. So, and being in the care system, sometimes there is a lot of placement breakdowns, and they move from home to home a lot. So these are some of the risks, of a child going into care. So it can be very damaging, and it can sometimes do more harm than good. And so that's why we do try as much as possible to refrain from a child going through that route. But other times it can't be helped.
Okay. Because I remembered back home, because I'm from Africa now, back home when our parents, you know, when they're talking to you when you've done something wrong, you dare not look at them face to face. We look down. So I kind of like struggled when I got to this country because when someone is talking to you, they want you to look straight in their eyes. So it kind of like, it took me a while to adjust.
Yeah.
You know, so this is to all parents out there as well. You know, I know we have a different upbringing back home in Africa, but I mean, when you're in Rome, you have to behave like a Roman and follow their rules, isn't it? Yeah. So we need to be careful, especially African mothers and dads out there. I know we are so quick with our hands and all that stuff, but when you're in Rome, you behave like a Roman. So we've heard a lot from Emily today about social care matters, and it's not all about taking your child away from you, but you dig deep first before it escalates to that stage, isn't it?
Yeah.
So please, there are different ways we could discipline our children. Let's not get carried away and don't let them be in charge. You know, you are in charge because you are the parent.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Emily, I'm going to ask a question. So, say for example, there's a case on a child, and the child has got other siblings. When social care gets involved on that child, does that involve the other siblings, or is it just for that child?
Yes.
Do they take all of them away, or just that one?
Okay, so I guess each situation varies.
Differs.
Yeah. What I can say about one family, it might not apply to another one. But most times, if there's one child in that house, if there's multiple children in that house, then the assessment would be on all of the children.
Really?
Because they are in that home. Essentially, we'll be asking all the children what's the discipline when they're naughty. And yes, in some cases, maybe one thing is happening to one child and the other child or the other children, it's not happening. And it might be that in that situation, only one of the consequences applies to that.
Just that child.
That one child. So it depends, because if that one child is at risk, but we know that okay, the other two are fine.
Okay.
We're not gonna.
You're not gonna do anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if that one child, so long as that one child is protected, then we will.
Okay.
But it really varies.
Okay. I want to ask a question. In situations whereby a child has been disciplined and you can see mark on the child's body, what do you do in situations like that?
Again, it varies. So some children, they might have to stay elsewhere for the night, maybe with another family of the parent's choice. If it's deemed that maybe if that child goes home, that parent could continue to, chastise that child. Other times that parent recognizes that, okay, yes, I did do this and it was wrong, and I'm happy to work with social care. In that situation, we could say, okay, the child can go home if it seems that is safe for the child, but then maybe a follow-up visit would be had the next day, or school will check in the next day. Okay. So again, it depends. Some parents, they're upset at the fact that social work has been called and they're not happy that the child has spoken out, and in those situations we might say, okay, maybe for a night or two, especially if it's a weekend when no one can check up, we might say, okay, this child should stay elsewhere.
Out of the
Can you
house.
make arrangements for that to happen? And other times, if the child is fine, then we'll let the child go home, but we will still assess.
And this assessment, how long is it for, roughly?
45 days.
45 days
maximum. But it depends on the turnaround. Maybe some social workers can get it done quicker. Okay. Others take the whole 45 days.
So that's if you're satisfied that the child is safe enough to remain with the family.
Yeah, and we've got all the information back from all professionals.
Okay, to back that up before you can make that decision.
So they will share their information.
So like the school, family members and all that stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So normally it's things, not family members, it's only professionals, but it's normally things like, have you got any worries or concerns? How is this child's presentation? schools.
So when you're talking about professionals, sorry about to call you short. When you're talking about professionals, we're talking about the GP, the school, head teacher.
Any mental health workers,
Okay.
domestic violence workers if they're involved, anything that any professional that's working with that family at that time, then yeah, we would follow up with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So say for example, I know back home we do some kind of punishments and stuff. So would you say kneeling down and raising up your hand is a punishment?
That is
or
abuse.
Is abuse. Okay, the parents out there.
Cool. Do you know what's funny actually? I think it's only within the last few years that I got to know that was even abuse.
Is it?
So I was even encouraging one parent at the time to say, you know, rather than smacking, let's try kneeling down or raising your hands, because that's how I grew up.
I grew up, yeah.
It was abuse.
It's abuse.
It's abuse. Yeah. So actually, if you know if we were to find out that that's happening, we'll be knocking on your doors as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Just to kneel down and raise up your hands.
Because
You will be knocking on their doors. Okay. So what about facing the door, facing the wall, face the wall, and be there for a while?
I mean, yeah, you can probably
You
get
can
away
do that
with
because that's like sitting on the naughty stairs
it's like
and
naughty
stuff.
step,
Yeah.
But I think it depends. If that child is made to stand for hours and hours, that's abuse.
That's still abuse as well.
Yeah, but if it's like reasonable, you know, if it's reasonable, maybe it's like that child is 8 years old and so you're making that child stand for 8 minutes, then
Yeah.
that's reasonable.
Man, children of the nowadays are enjoying, man.
I know, that's
They are
why
enjoying.
that's why it is really hard, and that's where
It's hard.
my values come in, because I personally do feel like sometimes it's like you're taking the control away from a parent, but at the same time you kind of have to use judgment and you have to, you know,
Okay.
it's difficult these days.
Thank you so much, Emily, for coming over to this podcast today.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you, and you've blessed so many souls out there.
I'm glad.
Thank you, and I pray the Lord will continually be with you,
Amen.
protect and guide you in your going out and coming in.
Amen.
All right. This is to parents out there. If you notice anything about your child or children, speak out. Don't let my boy is good syndrome affect you. Because sometimes when you drill those children, you will be amazed at what you would get out of them. You know, well, my boy doesn't do this, my boy doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he doesn't do that. But you'll be amazed. So please be your children's best friend. Don't shut them out. Listen to them. Be their best friend. Okay? That is it all for today, our lovely viewers. Please don't forget to keep on liking, sharing, and subscribe. Press the notification button. As soon as you get any episodes, you will be the first to be notified, okay? If you've got any question concerning what we've discussed today and we've not addressed it, please feel free to type it in the comment section, or there's a number showing on the screen right now. You can text us and you could email us as well, okay? We will try as much as possible to answer your questions, and lovely Emily here will be able to address issues as well, okay? So feel free. So this is just to let you know as well, if you've been given a talent, you've got a gift, just like Emily is sharing with us today, that you would like to share with people out there, please contact me. There's a WhatsApp number showing on the screen. Contact me and let me know how you would love to share your gift and expertise advice, okay? So that's all for today, our lovely viewers. Thank you so much for staying with us, and stay tuned till our very next episode, Keeping It Real with Kenny Adeyemo. God bless you and stay blessed.